Hi, welcome back. I thought I would show you where I left off with this painting, as I did the mark making last evening, and the video where I had started the underpainting, I had recorded some of the mark making that I had done. And this is a painting where I did the watercolor background quite a long time ago, maybe even a couple years ago, and then I had it in a pile of just some of my paintings that I had started and my practice paintings. And what I do is I go through the pile and I come back to them. So when I've learned different techniques, or I'm just sort of flipping through and I'm craving the colors that speak to me, I pull out that piece and I start doing mark making over top. So I thought I would show you in here. It's not very legible, which was purposeful, but what came to me when I was doing this last night was learn to let go of perfection. A lot of you have written to me on YouTube here and on Instagram or Facebook and have told me about, learning to let go of perfection and how that's kind of affected your art. And so it just came to my mind, and I just wanted to write it in there for myself as a reminder too. And this says, find your light and follow it. And I need to find a good new ring light. That just made me think about my ring light had died on me in my last video. And so anyway, the lighting will get better once I sort out my system as to what I want to have. So I am going to switch over to something a bit different. I just wanted to show you that. So I'm gonna zoom back in a little bit here, and I'm just gonna, pardon me while I fix my camera angle. And we're gonna work on some smaller projects. I am gonna do a little bit of work on different compositions, which is super fun. It's a really great exercise where you can just get out of your head and figure out what compositions you like in your art. So I had purchased these tiny little sketchbooks just from Michael's Artist Loft, their in-house brand. 140-pound paper is the most important to me. These are 4 by 6 inches, so they're super cute. If you do watercolor when you travel, these are a great little high quality book to take with you. And I find that the quality is actually quite good. So what I'm gonna do, I am gonna just take this one off. This particular composition is leaning heavily to the right, and with the darker colors, the navy, the black, it kind of pulls downward and it draws the eye down. So this composition is mostly the bottom kind of right, and I use this composition in a lot of my work. This little painting, again, these aren't completed paintings, just to show you the underlayers. This is, again, kind of going up and to the left, and I do the drips downwards. So I'm gonna show you some of my favorite compositions, and I just want you, if you have some little pieces of watercolor around, or, well, it doesn't matter what size, your art journal, your sketchbook, and just think about compositions and what compositions you love. And I am gonna activate my watercolors here. And I'm gonna use some water-soluble pencils. So all I really start with is watercolor, gouache, acrylic, whatever medium I like. Even if it's just pencil, you might just be doing some sketching in the composition area. And I also use these water-soluble pencil crayons, which are awesome. So what I'm gonna do is just start with, again, I've activated my watercolors, and here's my little set from theoceanpaper.com, my go-to set. And I'm gonna start with my favorite palette, and I'm gonna kind of start with this green here in the middle, and I'm gonna move my paper towel over here, show you a little bit more of how I work. You can see a bit of my palette here. I'm just seeing my camera angles. There we go. Can get this guy out of the way. I like to work on more than one painting at a time. And I'm gonna just bring in some of this beautiful light green. It's calling to drip, so I'm just gonna drip that down maybe a little bit further. And you see I tilted the book back to control the drip when I felt like it was just going a little bit too much. I'm gonna add in some of this gorgeous green, and a little bit up here. It's a real challenge for me to work small, and the reason for that is I tend to, well, I started out really large acrylic on canvas, and I loved painting large. I found it really freeing. And at the time, I found it easier than painting small. So that is how I learned, I think, kind of some of the techniques with painting, was painting really, really large. And it's a challenge to go smaller just because, well, I mean, look at all the paint I just got on here. All the pigment. I do use a lot of pigment in my work. However, when you're painting small, you have to be mindful not to use too much. And this composition is really, really one that I use often. I'm just gonna dab out some of that kind of, that clayish color. And I'm gonna add in a beautiful pink kind of gouache from the Stone Ground Paint Co. And maybe just a tiny bit up here. I love this color palette with the pinks. And I'm gonna add in a little bit of like a light blue, maybe a little bit of a light blue over here, a grayish blue, a bit up there. I've left out some of my oranges, which are my favorites. So I love pink and orange together. I do a little bit up here. And I do feel like if I was to do this again, I wouldn't have as much pigment on my paintbrush. But what I'll do is I'll just paint another composition kind of going up to the side. And that way, if I get a lot of paint on my brush, I can just go in between my paintings. I love Payne's Gray, this dark navy. There's another composition I really like here. And I like those colors when they blend. The orange and the navy become this beautiful kind of army green color. And I'm gonna go in with some light yellow again. I'm gonna just dot it in here. Add in some light yellow kind of coming up. It's a bit of a grayish yellow, and that's okay. And immediately I'm craving more of a rusty orange, but just a little bit of it, not too much. That is, again, a little bit more than I expected for the size of my page, these tiny little sketchbooks. And so this composition is very much centered at the top. And again, it draws the eye downward with that grounding mark in the middle. And then this composition over here is very much to the left-hand side. Some people follow the rule of thirds, where they want to put something interesting in a grid where you divide your page into three both ways. I didn't go to art school. I learned just by taking a lot of classes online. And you can see this is such a small page. I'm used to more white space over here. So this composition is slanted to the left and down, and it's still a lot of white space over here, but not as much as I had planned and that I like in my work. I love more white space, that resting space. I'm just gonna add a bit up there, watch it move around. And I think this one I could drip as well. Add a little bit of this peachy pink here. And it's a little bit too pinkish. This is a lesson in composition, but you can see I'm sort of also guiding what colors I love, because it's just sort of a natural habit for me to I'm adding a bit of white on my brush there and just blending that out. I'm loving this side. I want to add neons. I don't know where my neon palette is. I think I see it. I think it's called Komorebi Mozart, Komorebi. It has some beautiful neons on here, and I'm gonna just tuck in a little bit of a neon pink and neon orange right in there. Love that. Can do a little bit in here. It just adds that pop of color. For me, I love color in my work mixed with neutrals. I love this kind of, I don't know what color it is. I always get a lot on my brush and I'm like, why did I put so much of that on my brush? But it's a color that speaks to me so much, like a yellow ochre or an olive green. I don't know really what the proper name of that is. I'm sure it's written on my palette here, but I'm not gonna check because I'm focused on my video. And yeah, so I'm gonna let these dry, and think of like how fast that was for us to kind of get down some watercolor, play around with composition. Right now it's calling my name to add in, this is one of my favorite colors of a pencil crayon. It's just this beautiful, this is called khaki green. And you know what I might do is just pull the strip kind of upward. You can see how the blue watercolor came out in there when I pulled that up. So this is one little composition, and then over here, I'm just gonna wet my pencil crayon and I'm kind of gonna go upward, maybe pull also downward, maybe go back upward just for variety. I like that. Again, a central composition with the line going down. And then I'm gonna go, let's just see here. Maybe we can go back and we'll let these ones dry. And if you look up different art compositions, there's a lot of artists that have done wonderful videos or like visuals on different compositions. I know Laura Horn from Australia, who I love. I've taken many of her classes. She does some wonderful visuals of how she does her compositions. I believe it's in one of her courses. And I'm gonna add my dots immediately down here on the dark to add in a bit of magic and interest. And there we go. This almost looks like a bird coming down, diving downward, or like a feather or a leaf going upward. Immediately, I am drawn to this shape here, and I'm gonna, just so I don't smudge those dots, I'm gonna just draw this leaf and do my line work down here. You know, because I had done this leaf recently in some of my work in one of my art journal pages, and I added these little V shapes. And I quite liked it. I found it to be busy of a design, you know, a little bit more detailed than I typically would use in my work. But it's just kind of calling my name right now on this particular page. It's actually kind of neat. You know, I was doing it just unilaterally on one side because it was easy for me to draw that way, but I really like just that asymmetric look. So I'm just gonna leave that as is. And I'm going to grab my stencil. So I like to use a stencil when I do my moon. If I had a bright colored Posca pen, I might do like a bright orange. And so, you know what, I might just see what I have here. I think I bumped you guys, sorry about that. Let's just see what I have. I have this beautiful neon pink, which will do for now. This is a pink, or rose it's called, Posca pen. It's not as neon as it looks when it comes out. It's more of a pink, but I'll go over it. I don't have my orange pen handy, but I can always go over it with another orange supply. And I'm gonna just tuck it, where do I wanna put it? I wanna do a smaller one. Kind of wanna put it, let's look, right in here actually. And I love that. I'm gonna fill it in, and we'll go over it more than once because we want that opaque, painterly, high quality material look in our work. And it's not quite round, and that's okay. Sometimes I can go around and around and around, and then it becomes bigger, but that's okay. Like today, some days I keep going around. And here I talk about embracing imperfection, yet I really do want to get this round because it's just part of my artist design. Let's just flip over to this little one for a second. I love the combination of orange and gold. I'm gonna do a really tiny one in here, just in an unsuspecting place. And lately, these stencils I've used so much, I think, see the paint kind of came out underneath. And so I should probably clean them after I use them just so they don't get that paint underneath, but that's okay. Again, it's becoming a slightly bigger moon. And I also see a bird almost flying up. There's the wing. I see almost a bird here now with, that could be the legs. Isn't that interesting? Seeing more birds in my work. And I am gonna turn that right here though into a leaf and, or a feather. It's becoming a leaf right now. And just again, that asymmetric, using my Uniball gold pen to fix that there. Add in my white dots on this bird's chest, or whoops, whatever this is. It was a happy accident. Just can get that off if I want. And then maybe we'll do this here. So this is supposed to be a lesson in composition, but it's a little lesson in these mini paintings as well. Sometimes when I'm waiting for things to dry, I like to sign. I often sign up the stem, but I also look at the composition, and for this one, I'm gonna just use a little signature right in there. And I work on multiples at a time. I'm just gonna see, hopefully you are seeing what I was doing there. For this one, I'm gonna just sign maybe at the side here. And I am gonna go over that with orange. What I can do is use my orange Neocolor 1. So my Neocolor 1, which is well loved. Oh, I think that's the other half of it. Calgary, Alberta, Canada is very dry. So I think that this was a wax, a Neo 1, but I can't tell. So let's just, doesn't matter anyway whether it's water soluble or not, because this type of little painting would either go in a frame, I wouldn't seal it, or it would be reproduced into print. I'm liking the orange better, and then I'm gonna go for a slightly darker orange. So again, these well-loved little broken crayons, they're the best. Although they're a little bit harder to work with, small. I'm gonna round that out. And they're fun to blend with. So both the Neocolor 1 crayons and the Neocolor 2s, you can kind of blend them with your finger. It's a waxy feeling. See the orange on the tip of my finger. I do like the blended look. You can add in like a slightly more bright orange, say around the side, just to give it some depth or interest. And there we go. So I didn't need that orange Posca pen, did I? Okay. And I'm okay that it kind of is going off, how do you say, like, there we go, the texture. It's kind of neat how it's like, you see that texture in the cold pressed paper. And I'm gonna go back to adding my little birds in here. Let's just see. I'm gonna go with my black pen, and I'm gonna do just a little bird right in here, and maybe one kind of going inward like that, and then one up here, just a small one in the distance. I like that. They're a little bit big again because I'm used to working large. I'm gonna put this guy on the tip here. Sort of looks like a swan. but you can make it whatever you want it to be as the eye of the viewer and the artist both can decide what they want it to be. Do I want to do another one? I might do just another one, just a tiny little one over here. That's more the size I was looking for these compositions. And oh, I see I put my stencil over my wet compositions over here, but that's okay. And it's kind of fun finishing these little paintings. I immediately am drawn to like this pink where there's already orange watercolor marks. And I'm just gonna put some pink dots in there and maybe some pink dots down here. And I really am drawn to this one right now. I feel like this is so stunning. I am gonna look to see, you know what I'm gonna do? I love neons, and I'm gonna use, if you have a highlighter at home, you could actually get away with, this is supposed to be a highlighting pencil, and I use it as a mixed media supply. I just love that. So this pencil, these are really hard to find. I was lucky I found it at the local art store in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Here it's by Faber-Castell. So they're the company that also makes those water-soluble gelatos, but I feel like they may have discontinued it. It's called a text liner, inkjet paper text liner. And I have found this is broken off many times, so you can't push down very hard, but it's something I love in my work. I love these pops of neon, and this is just a really cool thing to add. Okay, so that is beautiful. I really want more turquoises kind of throughout here. I'm just trying to decide what mark making. I'm gonna go with maybe some black mark making. I'm gonna do a little black leaf kind of coming out here. And I'm gonna add maybe in another white leaf shape somewhere in here. Maybe on the end. This could actually be a feather. Just kind of an abstract feather. I've practiced all of these little marks, right? So you may think, you're doing it so fast, but it's just sort of like it's in my memory because I've sketched them out in my art journal. I've decided, you know, these are the marks I love. This is what I want to incorporate into my work. And so that's why I can do them fairly quickly. And I'm gonna just do a little leaf design in there. And I'm gonna just see where else we're at. These ones are still wet. A lot of artists use a hairdryer to speed up the process, but I really feel like sometimes you lose the blooms, you can lose a bit of your composition, and it's just, the reason I practice art is to slow down and enjoy the process. And even when I'm teaching, I try and fit that in as well and just let the paintings dry naturally, work on something different. I wanted to show you, well, this is one I was working on. This is I'm just gonna see if you can see that whole thing here. Create space for gratitude. This is a little mixed media painting that I had done, and I was playing around with the transparency of this color, watercolor, and you can see some of the more opaque watercolor in there, the very highly pigmented watercolor. I used a Neocolor Caran d'Ache crayon to make some marks, and I was thinking about how I leave blank white space in my work and how art is a form of gratitude. It's how I practice gratitude and enjoying the moment, enjoying stillness. And I put create space for gratitude because I was thinking of like the universe and synchronicity. There's my buzzer. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you for coming with me on this journey.